Yeah!
Hey, and welcome to another episode of Spear from the Past. We're continuing along the path of talking about every pay-per-view WWE has done so far. Obviously, there's going to be new ones coming each time, so the show will be able to keep going eventually. But at the moment, I've still got about 600 pay-per-views, old pay-per-views to talk about. So we're not running out of content anytime soon. But I've got Steve Macy here. Steve, how's it going?
It's going very well. It's been a while since I watched this particular pay-per-view. I think the last time I watched it was literally 25 years ago. So watching it yesterday, it brought back some good and some not so good memories, but we'll get to that later.
Yeah. I don't remember if I actually mentioned, but we're talking about WWE Backlash from 2000, which is 25 years old, which is so weird to see, especially when you see where some of these people have been. Like, some of them aren't in the WB anymore, some of them are in AEW and all over the place. But for that, we're going to get into it. I don't have much ramble because I've kind of already talked to Steve about his history of wrestling and all that. The first match we had on the card, we had Edge and Christian versus DX, which was the pairing of Road Dogg and X-Pac in this for the WWF Tag Team Championships. The match itself was really good. It was a lot of fun. Like, I had the usual spots and stuff that Edge and Christian are known for and all that. One thing I didn't realize is that One DMC did a version of the DX themes. But yeah, and the finish was weird because Christian technically wasn't the legal man, but he was the one that got pinned. So I think it was this weird thing where the ref didn't see the tag, which is something we'll mention a few more times tonight. I will say that. But Steve, what did you think of Edge and Christian versus DX?
It was an okay match to start off with. I mean, it basically the decline of DX meeting the rise of Edge and Christian, if you see at that point, because DX at that point was like literally running on fumes, and it eventually would just turn into the McMahon Helmsley era, just them two instead of DX being on the side with all that stuff. Because you also had that. You had the potential implosion between there's like some sort of weird chemistry between Tori and Road Dogg and Xbox. I didn't feel like it was there. Unlike if you had Road Dogg and Badass Billy Gunn. It was, I guess it was an okay match to start off with. But this was at a time where Edge and Christian weren't full-fledged heels like they would have become known for. But they were just getting to that point where, like, after they won the WWF titles, that they were just doing anything they can just to keep the title. So eventually, this was the advent of the Edge and Christian we would get to know later on. So it was a decent match. It was, if I rate it, I would give it maybe 5, 6 out of 10.
Yeah, because I'm pretty from what I remember about Edge, I'm pretty sure Edge is relatively new to the company at this point as well. Because I don't know if he was in the company in the 90s at all, but next up we had Dean Malenko versus Scotty Duhotty for the light heavyweight championship. Yeah, look, this was a fun match, and it's one of those ones like Scotty Duhotty's entrance is just energetic. But it's one of those ones I don't know too much about Dean Malenko. All I know is he has tens of thousands of holds or however much it was.
He's the man of 1,000 holes. How's it going, man? Man of 1,000 holes.
Yeah, but it was so much fun sort of watching him do any type of submission move in this match, and just and it's just one of those ones. It's kind of refreshing when someone doesn't do the same submission move all the time, because it makes things refreshing to watch. But I don't really have too much notes. There really isn't anything it's weird. It was a good match, but it's also one of those ones nothing noteworthy really happens either.
Right.
But Steve, what are your thoughts about Dean Malenko versus Scotty Duhotty?
I wish this was a match to open up, because I think when you have how many matches was there? 8 matches, I think, or something along the line.
9, I believe.
Matches. So I come from the world of independent wrestling, and usually when we want to put a good hot start match, we put that in the opener. And I think this would have fit more as the opener, and then have tag titles follow afterwards, because you kind of want to take the crowd on a little bit of a roller coaster. You want to take them high and then take them low, and take them high and take them low a little bit. So like this would have been a great opener match. I mean, Scotty Tuhati is a fantastic worker. I mean, he's been before he became Scotty Tuhati. I mean, he was a great worker in other parts of the country. He was initially a jobber before he teamed up with Brian Christopher. But and Dean Malenko, I mean, Dean Malenko is a person that needs to be in the Hall of Fame. He is a great technician. I mean, yeah, he doesn't have the carrots, the charisma as Scotty Tuhati, but man, his technical work makes up all its own, especially his work in the cruiserweight division in WCW. That finish though, that counter from the suplex DDT, holy, like I forgot that was even the finish for that match, because usually I associated him like with submission moves, but that was a great finish to the match. It was pretty good. It's probably one of the best matches that I've seen of the pay-per-view. So like, I definitely put that as one of the best matches we saw on the card.
Yeah. And yeah, it's I don't know if it was ever a thing, but I like, it's also one of those ones like I can get why they didn't put it in the first match either, because I think it's probably one of those ones like they were at the era where then they might have just wanted to make sure like people who'd paid tickets to go see the show weren't running late in the seat and that. So it's like
right. I guess they probably also wanted to test the waters with the tag team championship, see how
yeah. But next we had a quick backstage segment with the McMahons talking to Gerald Briscoe and Pat Patterson, making sure they were on their side and all that. Nothing much of note. It was just like, so I know this era was where like it was just the McMahon sort of running everything and trying doing every trick they can not to have The Rock win the title. But there was really nothing noteworthy about this segment. Any thoughts about the backstage segment?
Honestly, I didn't really focus on too much of the backstage segment. I kind of just wanted to get to the matches. So most of the ones I wasn't really paying attention to, or either that, or was preoccupied with like something on my phone. So just backstage segments really did nothing for me. Even back then in the Attitude Era when I was watching it, unless it was like Stone Cold or The Rock, I paid little to no attention to it. So
no, that's fair. Like especially in this pay-per-view, the backstage segments weren't overly interesting anyway. Like, because we'll definitely get to another one in a minute. But the next match we had was Bull Buchanan and the Big Boss Man versing the APA. Which I totally didn't realize Teddy Long was a ref. I remember watching. It's like, hang on, that's Teddy Long. The gentleman of SmackDown. But it was still fun to see him in a different role than I'm used to. But the match itself I thought was decent enough. But once again, the screw finish and I'm pretty sure there was another blind tag in here where Teddy didn't see it at all. I was like, but it's like. But it was a screwy finish when Big Boss Man hit the APA for the nightstick and to get the win in there. But Steve, what are your thoughts about this match?
Yeah, did not like this match at all. I didn't feel like that these two teams had any chemistry. Like the DX and Edge and Christian match, at least these two had a rep. They were well established. They were very known for their tag team, maneuvers and their reputations as tag team champions separately before they were doing that. But Bull Buchanan and Big Bossman, I get it. You get the little small tough guy and the big tough small guy and a big tough guy who could do some moves, but like he really doesn't much. I mean, it just felt like I don't know, something felt like off there, where like I don't think they had as much chemistry with, especially against the Acolytes. I feel like there was just, especially when you have somebody, Bull Buchanan. I don't know, he was fairly new at the time. I don't know if he was straight from the developmental system or not, or if he was a well-traveled person as an independent wrestler. But like Yeah, I felt like his slight greenness kind of like hindered the match a little bit. So this was probably not a great highlight of the pay-per-view.
Yeah, no, it's one of those ones. Like I've talked a lot about Big Boss Man matches before. Like he was always like I don't think I think until I started doing the show, I don't think I had ever seen any Big Boss Man matches. But I've seen a few of them. Some of his time in WCW as Big Bubba Rogers, something like. But he's one of those ones that I've always thought his matches were just fine. Like I've never really been like that. I've never seen sort of Big Boss Man on the card like, oh shit, a Big Boss Man match. I can't wait to see that. It's like,
I mean, to be fair, I mean, back in the day when he wore that blue police officer, he pulled some great. I mean, he was a big man who could move real quick, especially if you ever see him in like the late '80s when he did that slide underneath the ring. What Baron Corbin used to do. He did the
yeah,
slide underneath the ring post and then went into the ring and just fucking clotheslined the shit out of that person or whatever. But
yeah,
like he was very, very athletic at the time. But like you're thinking about it, you see 2000, he's about 40 something years old at this moment, maybe
yeah.
50, maybe getting to his 50s. And yeah, he doesn't move as much as he used to. It's basically using Bull Buchanan as the more reliable person to move around the ring. And we're still talking about a person who's still a little slightly green in the gills there, but it mostly focused on Bull more than Boss Man. He was more like kicking back and letting Bull Buchanan take most of the punishment or do most of the offense.
Oh yeah, no, that's definitely a fair point there. Then next we had the typical backstage segment with tag teams. If they have to compete against each other, going, yeah, we have to like compete against each other for about, but we'll try and work together as much as possible and all that. Well, that was on the Hardy side. And then on the Holly side, was like Crash Holly just wanted to work as a team, but Hardcore just slapped him. Was like didn't want anything to just didn't want to do it. Which leads into the match anyway. And yet like the six man Hardcore championship belt match with Crash Holly facing Hardcore Holly facing Matt and Jeff Hardy, Perry Saturn and Taz. And it's one of those ones like it was a really I had a lot of fun with the hardcore match. Like some of the spots they were doing, especially the spot where you had like Crash and Matt climbing up the set, and then you had Matt jumping onto the other guys. It's like it's just one of those spots that is always fun to see happen. Is like, and it's like you watch it, it's like don't do it, you'll hurt yourself at the same time.
Right.
But yeah, it was a fun hardcore match. Like Crash Holly ended up getting the win and keeping his belt, but the match itself, I think it might have got a little bit too long because I think there's only so long you can do a hardcore match, but it didn't take away from the match at all, though. But Steve, what did you think of this hardcore match?
I mean, you know, picking up, it definitely picked up a little bit. Like I do enjoy what I like to call the hardcore fracas, the hardcore fracas. Anytime that happens, even especially that WrestleMania 2000 clusterfuck that happened in the previous month. Like I like it. It's always been fun to watch like the 24/7 rule be implied happened through this era of the hardcore championship. And it's great to see kind of Matt Hardy and Jeff Hardy kind of going at it in a match because they didn't really haven't touched against each other since as before tagging up, because this was the first time we've seen them kind of like go butt heads as
Yeah,
separate competitors because they were in the same match. So like but, I enjoyed Crash Holly's usual antics and Hardcore Holly's antics, and it's just usual hardcore shenanigans happening here with Crash always eventually coming up with the win in the pin and always running away before people can just kind of jump on him again. So it was a usual fare. It was better. It was better than the tag match better than the previous tag match. But not as good as the first two matches. But it was there. It was a hardcore match, and it did its purpose.
But then next we had the standard interview with the special guest ref of Jonathan Coachman talking to Shane McMahon, who promises they will call it from the middle, which every time I see these things, like I always call bullshit on them because you know that the
course.
for the most part, there's going to be some bullshit. But then next up, you had Big Show. Oh, I'm sorry, you had the Showster facing off against Kurt Angle, and yeah, like um, and this is another one like. In other matches I've seen Big Show in, and even like in the recent year, I'm used to seeing sort of Big Show as this as a heel as opposed to being a face, and like so. But and well, I think this was kind of this was one of those ones where it was a short match anyway, but it was like, but I think it was just one of those ones where they wanted to do it to get Big Show over as a face and just this
Right.
thing because they did the usual. They Kurt Angle came out, did the promo making fun of America and all that, and then Big Show came out dressed as Hulk Hogan. Who, if he did it in this era, he'll be booed like
Yep.
crazy, like the real Hulk Hogan does.
Subtitle: Crowd booing.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, and it's one of those ones where I'm because I was reading up more about this. I mean, other people's reviews, like Hulk Hogan was in WCW at this point, so a lot of people speculate this was probably most likely a direct shot at him as well. But the match itself, it was short. Big Show came out, and I think Big Show tried to do Hulk's moves and that, but then pulled off the
No,
outfit later, and then did his usual stuff. But it was short, but it was fine. Like I don't really, there's not really much to say about this match, to be fair. But Steve, what are your thoughts about Big Show versus Kurt Angle?
I mean, the best thing about this match was like he's doing a great Hulk Hogan impression, like him cutting that
Oh
promo.
yeah, yeah,
Like
yeah.
if you close your eyes and you tell this guy, and you tell a person that, hey, this is Hulk Hogan cutting a promo, like he'd be like, yeah, that's Hulk Hogan. Take off the blind Hulk. No, that's Paul White. So yeah, this was a moment where he was coming off his heel run from WrestleMania 2000 when he was backed up by Shane McMahon, and then he became. This was the first of many switches from heel to face that we would go on to see in WWE. And this, and you also, if you saw the promo package, also showed him dressed as Big Bastard. Him, doing a lot of impressions as well. So he was trying to show his comedic chops. Maybe he was trying to get into acting. So at the moment, this was something for him to get, gets his foot in the steps to probably, do something in the meanwhile. And yeah, and it came to the expense of the WWF's rising star at the time, Kurt Angle. I mean, I think if you could have put somebody else in that match instead of Kurt Angle, it probably would have been the same result. I just think that might have hurt his. I mean, he already was winning titles at that point, but still,
Yeah.
it's kind of a little bit of a bump on the road for Kurt Angle's success to become in the future when he would eventually get that title.
Yeah, it's one of those ones. When I saw it, was like, I thought Kurt Angle was like kind of weird to have in this position, um, but it's one of those ones where I think it worked. I don't necessarily, I didn't really hurt Kurt Angle's momentum either. Like he bounced back from that as well. Like
Right.
but next up
I
we
mean, it's just that it's like it kind of sucks because if you look at it, he lost the European and IC title the previous month, but now he's facing Big Show in a 2-minute squash match. He ends up so at that point, I don't know whose cereal he shat on during that time for him to get all that crap. You know what I mean? So something happened. Something happened. I assume something happened backstage for him to be able to find himself in that position. So
yeah. But then next up we had a backstage segment of Michael Cole, who I completely forgot was a backstage interview at one point, interviewing Trish Stratus, who said that it was apparently they're having this weird storyline where Trish Stratus was distracting Bubba Ray Dudley for reasons. Is like, and Trish said like, "Oh, Bubba was soon find out how she feels, and then Devon. Then it kind of panned to Bubba watching this interview, and then Devon saying, "Come on, we've got to go have our match. Like, don't worry about it."
Yeah.
But leading into the match, we had Test and Albert with Trish Stratus
TNA.
defeating the Dudley Boys, and once again there was another spot where the ref misses the tag, and that is like, but the match itself was okay. I think having the storyline of Trish distracting Bubba kind of took away from this match a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it was like one of those ones like after the match you'd Bubba getting up, and then the Dudleys putting Trish through a table, and then sort of twisted away, then stretched it out, and that. But Steve, what are your thoughts about Tess and Albert versus the Dudley Boys?
Yeah, this was not a good match. I mean, Tess and Albert, they as workers themselves are not really good. I'm sorry. I mean, to respect the wishes of the late Andrew Martin, but he was particularly good in that part of TNA. I mean, the best part about TNA was the literal TNA, Trish Stratus. Really, to be honest with you, I mean, the tag team was just like big burly man. We're tall, we can do stuff. And they're fighting against the former tag team champions in the Dudleys, and this felt like a massage. This felt like a very misogynistic. It's misogyny encased in the match because you had Bubba just cursing up a storm, just yelling at Trish until he eventually caused violence against this woman who, she it's just very weird to watch something like that happen, especially now in 2025. I mean, I'm sure back in the day I was like, yeah, whip that girl's ass and blah blah blah. But like now watching is like, I get it, but like this girl didn't do nothing to you except just like, flirt with you a little bit, and you just put her through a damn table. You gave her wood. Ha ha ha. To talk about giving wood, if you know what I'm saying. That also the giving Lawler just being on commentary talking about giving wood. I mean, that was already grating at the moment. So it's that this was probably one of the worst matches in this on this card, if I could say so, because it just really all the payoff was Trish getting put through a table. That was about it. And even watching that now, it is uncomfortable.
Yeah. Just to bring up a modern day comparison, like Law Commentary back in 2000, that was grating to listen to, but then I watched NXT yesterday. Booker T on commentary is getting to the point where he's annoying to listen to. It's like,
is he getting to Lawler territory? 2000.
I mean, he's one of the. I mean, he's probably the loudest commentator. Like sometimes, like most of the time, I'm hearing Booker T. I'm not hearing Corey Graves or the other guy that's on NXT.
Or Vic Joseph.
Yeah. So yeah, there's definitely times there's like I will say if they were to move Pat McAfee to SmackDown and have him and Joe Tessitore, I really enjoyed the interaction between Michael Cole and Ray Barrett. I think they were they're a good pairing on commentary.
Yeah.
But then sort of kind of following on from this from the the backstage segment of Trish being wheeled away, you see Trish being put into an ambulance, but then and I like that they've brought this kind of transition back as well, where you got a backstage segment that transitioned to another backstage segment, because you had Eddie pulling up in his car sort of straight afterwards, and a referee told Eddie that he had to go to the ring to defend his title, and apparently Eddie was at his prime, which I don't know how old Eddie was supposed to be at this time, but it's like he does not look like the age to be going to proms. Just like I don't know if they do how old you are when you finish school. But it's like I don't think Eddie was at age to be at a prom. But it is what it is. Then you had Eddie Guerrero, who I actually forgot was paired with China at one point. Going out to face Issa Rios, who was paired with Lita for the European title. The match itself was pretty decent. Like pretty much like you had Eddie go to the ring in his car, then just sort of changing out of his prom gear and all that to wrestle. But the match itself was fun. Like I've I've never heard of Issa Rios before, so I don't know like how long he was ever in WWE, whether this was a short time. But then after the match, you had another one which in this day and age would not play off well. You'd Lita sort of brawling with China, stripping China down to her bra and panties, and I'm pretty sure. And from what I was reading, once again, this was when they were trying to turn China into more of a sex symbol than from when she was in with DX and that. But Steve, what are your thoughts about Eddie versus Issa Rios?
Well, S.A. Rios was at first part of the cruiserweight program at Aguilar. He was wearing a mask, and he was known as Aguilar, Aguilar. And then he took the hood off or the mask off, and it became S.A. Rios and got paired with Lita at the time, who came from Mexico and at the time came from ECW when she was known as Miss Congeniality. So they're both fairly new into the federation. And Eddie and SA honestly had probably one of the best matches of the night. I really enjoyed their dynamic. It's kind of to see Eddie kind of channel his luchador days back to channel his WCW cruiserweight channel days. Because he didn't really have that much, honestly, because he entered around 99 as part of the Radicals, and then didn't really have anything until getting paired with China. And honestly, that kind of really launched him a little bit to become a star, because that's how he became Latino Heat, and China, she was a very fine looking woman, especially at the end of the match. That's what I got to say about that. And I like the part where they kind of played into Lita always hitting Eddie, and then eventually it backfired a match, as opposed to when she always kept it was an accident to just fly into Eddie Guerrero, because I think they were teaming up before they had this European title match. So I really enjoyed the match for what it was. Post-match segment and all.
Yeah, and just after quickly reading up about this, it was actually just after this match where Rios ended his partnership with Lita and attacked her with the Hardys coming to her aid, and that's kind of the transition from when Lita went with the Hardys when Rios.
Perfect.
And then sort of a year later, Eos was released in 2001. But next up, we had another backstage segment of Jonathan Coachman interviewing Triple H, Stephanie, and Vince. And one thing I actually meant to mention, like all through this pay per view, people were talking about like, oh, where's Stone Cold? Stone Cold should be here. It's like there's a hot budding thing.
Stone Cold going to show up? Is he going to show
up? Yeah, Rich. Once again, it was really annoying to hear constantly. It reminds me of when I was watching WCW Uncensored with one of the commentators going, "It doesn't matter, it's uncensored." And it was just the usual kind of backstage segments where Triple H basically said his usual stuff like play the game and blah blah blah. And then Vince just talked about Stone Cold not being there. Nothing of note in either of those. Then it kind of transitioned to Michael Cole interviewing Chris Benoit, who just talked trash about Jericho as per usual. But then it leads into the match of Chris Benoit versus Chris Jericho. And it's one of those, and Chris Benoit ended up beating Chris Jericho by disqualification. But despite the disqualification finish, I still think it was an entertaining match, because I think that Chris has worked together really well. And I've said this before, it's like, despite what you may think about Chris Benoit, what he did, he is a really good wrestler, and it's just but it's just one of those ones that once again, a lot of because I was actually watching a brief clip from because Kurt Angle recently was on Inside with Chris Van Vliet, where he was talking about Chris Benoit as well. And everyone was saying like how he was told to pretend he didn't exist, but how he said like there was some of his best matches as well. Like and it got to a point where he just couldn't pretend that they just don't exist because it was one of his best matches he fought. But Chris Benoit versus Richard Gere. I think it was a fun match. And this is one of those rare cases where the disqualification finish did not hurt the match. But yeah, Steve, what did you think about Chris Benoit versus Chris Jericho?
Despite all of Benoit isms and all the stuff that that he did, yeah, it's probably the second best match of the night, because this was really entertaining, and because Jericho and Benoit both had chemistry back in WCW in the cruiserweight division, and they carried that over here to the WWF. This was probably Benoit's first great match since. Because I believe the Radicals have been separated at this point in April, because I don't remember if they broke off after they had that tag intergender match in Mania. But they were all on the card. I think, yeah. Saturn was part of the hardcore title match. Eddie was European champion, and Benoit was the Intercontinental champion. So I'm trying to think who. Malenko's the cruiser lightweight. So the Radicals were all on the card, and they all actually had good to great matches on the card. It's not surprised, but like again, it's not a surprise that these guys had great chemistry because they carried it over from WCW, and they will keep on carrying it over until what I find is their best match of all time against each other, which was the ladder match for the IC title at Royal Rumble 2001. I think that's probably the best match that they ever had, and probably one of the best opening matches at a pay-per-view. So, like, if you like this match from Backlash 2000, you got to check out the opening match for Royal Rumble 2001, because that show itself was a banger, but like that one just started out literally with a bang with that ladder match.
Oh, eventually I'll make my way to that Royal Rumble. I've covered a couple Rumbles at this point. But then after the match, Jericho getting upset and putting the rules of Jericho on the referee.
Funny.
Yeah, which he seems to do that a lot when he gets upset. Like he loses the match or someone loses the match. Like, I'll just put the rules of Jericho on someone. As I'm actually just rewatching the initial season of NXT when it was the competition stuff, and like he did that a lot as well.
The Jericho. Gotcha.
Yeah. But then next up, you had Michael Cole interviewing The Rock, who once again just the usual thing, like it doesn't matter who has to go through, and all the usual Rock stuff in the interview. But then you had The Rock versus Triple H for the WF Championship, and once again, this was just one of those matches where a lot of stuff happened, but it made sense as well, because you'd Shane McMahon starting off as the ref, and then when he got taken out, Gerald Briscoe and Pat Patterson came down to take over, and then you had Vince attacking The Rock with a chair, which then brings out Stone Cold for the save, and then Linda McMahon was the one that ended up bringing out Earl Hebner, who counts the 3 count, making Rock the champion. But this match, I do think it was a really good match, despite like, it's one of those ones like I do think it might have been a tad overbooked, but it's just one of those ones like it made sense at the same time.
It was the Attitude Era. Everything was overbooked. The Attitude Era is always overbooked.
Yeah. No, that's fair. It's one of those ones like I'm getting to realize that, but it's just one of those ones like it also made sense at the same time as well. But Steve, what are your thoughts about The Rock versus Triple H?
Best match of the night. I mean, despite we knew what we were going to get into when we had Shane McMahon as the referee, and then you had Side note, by the way, do we ever talk about Deborah as the ring announcer in the beginning of the card?
No, I don't think we did.
That was weird. And literally I watched that 25 years ago and still don't understand why she was the ring announcer. And then eventually 2 or 3 matches later, we got Lilian Garcia. But anyways, despite that, I had to point that out because that was just random and she was not very good. Yeah, that match was the Attitude Era incarnate. You wanted to know what the Attitude Era was? You watch this match and you see all the shenanigans go on, the potential screw jobs, the run-ins, the school potent. We had freaking Pat Patterson come in to try to be the referee, and we had freaking Gerald Briscoe try to be the referee. We had a whole parade, but it was fun. It was it's not complicated. It's like watching a popcorn movie. You know what you're getting into when you're watching a match like this, and it could still be great despite all the predictable things that were bound to happen. And probably the best part of it was like Stone Cold just coming out and just wailing people with like concussion shots. And just that shot against Patterson and freaking Vince was like gnarly. Still can't just believe that these had people go through that. But different era. But Stone Cold comes in with the pop. Saves the Rock from all the shenanigans, from McMahon shenanigans, and you have the Rock become your new WWF champion, because Triple H held that title for a while because you had that thing where he was like, oh, Vince pinned him and then he won it back because it was a vacant and all that stuff. So he held that title for a while because he was the first heel to retain the WWF championship at the time when he had that 4-way match. So like they were already putting the rocket strap on him at that moment, and to see The Rock have some like momentarily revenge, and they would eventually go on to the next month to have probably their best match, which was the Iron Man match for the title. So these 2 matches were probably the best 2 matches that The Rock and Triple H has ever had. And that's also counting their ladder match for the IC title at SummerSlam 98. So like I would put those 3 matches, SummerSlam 98 ladder match, this Backlash 2000 and the Judgment Day 2000 matches as probably that great trilogy of matches between those Triple H and The Rock.
Yep. But after the match, The Rock and Austin celebrate in the ring. Austin then leaves sort of in the middle, and then comes back. Randomly decides that I'll play more music to announce that I'm coming back, and tows the destroyed DX Express that he did earlier in this kind of storyline, and then continues to celebrate with The Rock afterwards, which I thought was a little bit random, just to bring back, just for him to leave, just to bring back the destroyed truck. But I think it was kind of a way to continue celebrating the vanquishment of.
Yeah, keep sending the phone to send the fans happy, because you kind of like at that moment you satisfied everybody's anticipation of Stone Cold showing up. So like the fact that you had Stone Cold actually show up, because they were playing the fact that he wasn't sure. 50, so they're like, still people were believable back in the day. Like, oh, I don't know if we'll show up. We were as wrestling fans, we were very gullible. So we didn't think Stone Cold was going to show up at the time, and he didn't. We're like, yay, he showed up, yay! Oh, look, he brought the DX buzz. He's destroying it even more. Yay! Here we go. Send him to home. I was not sad, but like I would just kind of wish maybe would have sent home, give him Rock the Stunner. He at that point, Austin was like, he was away because he was recovering from the surgery. He was in an active competition. So if you just had him, just give the Stunner to Rock. I mean, at that point, I know The Rock's a baby face, but at that point, you kind of like Stone Cold could stun anybody and still become the baby face. So it don't matter. Yeah, you can stun every babyface you wanted, but like I think if you would have stunned The Rock at the end, it would have created a little nice wrinkle to their Iron Man match. But then I guess things were dictated and stuff happened for him. I don't think he showed up, or something happened for him not to show up at Judgment Day. That saved for another returning legend to happen at Judgment Day. But I'm sure you'll talk about that next show, possibly.
Yeah. But it's one of those ones like because I talked about this with Royal Rumble 2009, but it's like watching it back now, it's one of those ones. The fact that the commentators kept on talking about where is Stone Cold, like, and you think, yeah, he's gonna it's like, yeah, he's gonna show up at the end. Like, they're talking about it too much to the point where it's becoming obvious.
Eye rolling, like, oh, here we go. They're talking about Stone Cold again. Oh, if he's gonna show up, yes, all right, we got it. We got the point. I mean, it was ad nauseum at that point.
Because and it's one of those ones. With the comparison I was going to make, because I did when I did the Royal Rumble 2009. The fact they kept on talking about how Randy has to win to keep his job or whatnot. It's like yeah, Randy Orton is going to win this Rumble. It's like, even though I knew that he does anyway, it's one of those Rumbles that I've actually watched many times before. But it's like yeah, I know that he wins, but it's like seeing all them talking about it constantly is like you're making it more obvious.
I mean, let's be honest. I mean, the really good Randy Orton Royal Rumble win was 2017 when he freaking chucked Roman Reigns to the applause of it. I'm sorry, we're going on a side note, but I just remember Royal Rumble 2017 because he just had competed in the match against Kevin Owens for the Universal title. I think it was at the beginning or the middle of the match. And then he's the last entrant, and everybody just fucking boos him, like, boo! And like, and I still remember to the time, social media was still not new, but like at the time, Twitter, everybody had a reaction to Roman Reigns entering at number 30 on 2017 Royal Rumble. Everybody had a reaction. They were like,
yeah,
what the fuck? And then, Orton chucks, Orton became the babyface that night and just should chuck Roman Reigns to the light of many people. So like, again, sorry I brought that up, but it's all you get me on a whole tangent on side quests here. We'll have days.
Oh yeah. No, it's fine. As well as ones like I didn't want the tangent, but with that does bring us to the end of that. There's the end of the pay-per-view. If you could go back in time and change one booking decision, what would you change?
Booking decision. I honestly, well, if I'm gonna put my Booker's hat, I don't think I probably change any decisions. I probably get rid of the Big Show angle show. I get rid of it. Save that for a Raw is War or a SmackDown segment for like a full match like that. I would probably put Dean versus Scott first. I would put, again, I'm just being I would definitely change the order and how the matches work, because I would have definitely had give me a second. What would I would have had Scott Dean open. Then I would have had a tag. I would have had the tag match, the Bull Buchanan Big Boss Man, the hardcore title, the WWE tag title match, European, TNA, Intercontinental, and main. I would switch the order of it. I wouldn't change the decision because eventually those decisions would actually pan out. Again, the only thing I probably would take is like eliminate that Big Show Kurt Angle match and save it for a Raw's War SmackDown segment. I mean, they did eventually, but I think that match was just was there and kind of like useless and had no point. And I'd probably say the same for the tag team match, but like, I mean, you kind of need a few tag team matches more on that card than you do on singles card, a singles match, because you don't need one more additional. You at least have they had three tag matches. I don't mind because they kind of had a story to progress with. But yeah, so that's what I would change.
For me, what I would change is I wouldn't have Trish out ringside for the whole match of TNA versus the Dudley Boys. I would have had her sort of stay backstage and then come out like midway through the match to distract Bubba, because I think, and then that way you're letting Tess and Albert and those boys have a kind of match before you have Trish walking out and doing something to distract Bubba. But it's one of those ones, like, it is what it is.
Yeah, it is.
I wasn't overly too upset with much of this thing. Like, it was one of those ones. Like, for me, I had fun with a lot of the matches myself. Like, but moving into the overall ratings, Steve, what would you rate this pay-per-view out of 5 stars?
Out of 5 stars, I probably gave it maybe 3.5. So like a 7 out of 10, 3.5. It half the card was good to great. The other half, So like, it's definitely not a 2 stars because it's definitely doesn't meet in the middle. So I think it meets a little bit more closer to, like, it was good for what it was at the time. I mean, honestly, it was definitely a better event than WrestleMania 2000 if I were to compare to anything. But I'm trying to think. 2000. Yeah, definitely better than Mania 2000 because Mania 2000, that was a lot of matches and not a lot of time for each match. And at least this one had 9 matches with, again, I guess 8.5 if you count the Big Show and Angle, because it's really 2 minutes. But like, each match had its own time, did its business, told the story, and it was entertaining. So like, it wasn't terrible, but it wasn't great. So I'd say 3.5 out of 5.
Yeah, and for me, I'll give it 4 out of 5. Like, I enjoyed it I enjoyed it for the most part, and it's one of those ones, like, even though it was 2 minutes, I enjoyed the Big Show and the Kurt Angle match. It's one of those ones, like, I thought it was good to have a quick break between 2 matches that are progressing stories and all that. Just something fun there. That's not like a promo that doesn't need to be there.
They could have done a lot less with promos, because really those promos didn't really do much.
I agree with that. But with that, it's time to spin the wheel to see what the next pay-per-view they'll be covering.
Ooh, let's see. Spin the wheel, make a deal. What do you got?
It's stopping. It's WrestleMania 2.
Ooh, sorry.
I mean, it's one of those ones. Like, I knew there was always going to be a chance I was going to hit another WrestleMania. I've already done. I've done the first one already, so I was like,
okay, so you're ready for the second one then, I guess.
It's one of those ones. Like, I know what to expect. From what I've heard, like, definitely the early Manias are not the greatest, and I know.
3 is pretty good. 3 is
pretty
good.
But once again, I've heard that.
Yeah, but like, again, WrestleMania 2 was a very interesting experiment. Let's just say that. I will say that, and it was what it was, and especially at the time when you had the advent of closed circuit and pay-per-view coming at the time. So it was a very interesting event in how they were trying to basically juggle in terms of like simulcasting from 3 different venues on the same night.
Oh yeah, that's. I think I've actually watched this one once before, so it'll be good to watch it again and cover it with someone as well. But with that does bring us to the end of the episode. Steve, where can people find you online?
Oh, they can find me here right below where my name is at Mesa Media One on Facebook, on YouTube, on the X. I am on Instagram at smesa85. I've actually uploaded a video about the promotion down here in Florida called The Establishment. They're basically kind of like it kind of ran at the beginning like as the apprentice, at the wrestling version of the Apprentice. Then it eventually evolved into something really cool with great local workers, amazing storylines, and great action in the ring. So check out the Establishment Wrestling on their Twitter, on their Facebook, on their Instagram. They're really great people. And I shoot for them occasionally whenever I get a chance to go up there in Orlando. So check them out because they're, I believe they're going to have a show around, I think, February 15th, I believe.
And you can find me on Tape Productions, host at Rankum, every Sunday. This Sunday, it's going to be on the top 12 non-horror characters that you'd like to see them make into a horror movie, similar to Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey, etc., etc.
Mm-hmm.
But just something fun, I thought, why not? And you can also find me on Spare from the Past, where next time we'll be talking about WrestleMania 2. And you can also find me popping up here and there, whether it's on the Movie Hero Network, Multiplex, and all that.
Well, probably, all those jazz.
All the usual places where you can find people doing stuff. But yeah, but that is the end of there, and see you next time.